Okay, hi everybody. My name is Fatima, and I'm here with Julia Martinez.
Hi everyone, I'm a current student here at Georgia Gwinnett College studying applied math.
Okay, great.
Is everything I'm doing? So should I say it differently or?
No, you're good, you're good.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Okay. So today we're here talking about polarization and just how polarized Congress really is. But even I think without this, we know that, how divided they are.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen. But the
very divided. Like they're so divided that it's like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. So polarization, Merriam-Webster's official definition is a division into two sharply distinct opposites, especially a state in which the opinions, beliefs, or interests of a group or society no longer range along a continuum but become concentrated at opposing extremes. So there's a bunch of different elements to polarization. Four of them. The first one is ideological sorting, which is basically how they categorize each other as all Democrats are liberal and all Republicans are conservative. And I think that it used to be like the opposite, right? It used to not be like that.
Yeah, before the Great Reset.
Great Reset. Expand on that.
Oh, the 1900s. At least when I was looking back into the politics or the political history of Georgia, I think after the elections in the early 2000s or the 90s maybe is when it swapped, because Georgia used to be was Democratic, but most of Georgia was Democratic, and then it switched to all Republican. I think maybe with Nathan Deal or before that, I don't remember. But the parties switched in terms of control of Georgia.
Yeah, so I know our teacher, he said it goes back actually all the way back to the early 1900s, late 1800s. I know he said something about how with the New Deal during the Great Depression, how FDR pushed all that. He was a Democrat.
Yeah, that's true.
And he pushed all these economic reforms where the government would provide a bunch of assistance. Because of that, people started associating him as an economic liberal. And just throughout different presidents, with Nixon, and I think he said Nixon and the war on drugs, with that, and he was a Republican, and so it just kind of changed throughout each president.
And then there was the Richard Nixon's Southern Strategy.
Yeah.
So.
The second element was ideological polarization, which is liberals have gotten more liberals and conservatives have gotten more conservative. And both fight on issues corresponding to their party's ideology. And so basically, they ask, there's three major questions. How do we get a good society? What is a good society? And how do we solve society's problems? And each politician answers those problems depending on their ideology. And you know how Republicans typically, associate that with religion, specifically Christianity.
The GOP.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about
that? I see where that's an issue, but sometimes it feels I feel the libs have gotten more liberal and the conservatives have gotten more conservative. It just feels sometimes when the liberals or the Democrats when we conflate those two groups, and then the Democrats will start pushing legislation or policies, but once you start really looking at the agenda that they're trying to push, or when you start to look and read between the lines, it's a lot of their policies seem very Republican in some ways.
What do you mean?
So for example, with President Biden or the Democratic Party, when they try to roll back on reproductive justice and reproductive freedoms.
Oh yeah.
Biden has been in office, or he's been in Washington D.C. for over 40 years now, and they still have never really taken the initiative to codify Roe v. Wade. But now he's in office, it's kind of why isn't that when he was in office that they wanted to our kind of our reproductive rights are kind of more they're being more intact now. When before there was a during Trump's administration, our reproductive rights weren't really under much fire, I feel But then you would think like, oh, we elected a Democratic president, so like we don't have to worry about stuff like that. But it just feels like when we have I don't know, but also because we have like a majority Republican Senate.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say.
So
that's what
like,
I was just about to say.
It just feels like sometimes maybe the Democrats like compromise a lot of stuff so that way they can work with the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like comparing the Democratic Party now towards like back in the day, it seems like back in the day they actually cared about workers and they cared about poor people. Whereas now the Democratic Party just leans more to the rich people so that way they can get money for their elections and stuff.
I think you're right. For the most part, I do. But I think at the end of the day, both Democrats and Republicans, they're just as bad with each other.
Theory.
Yeah.
They're both fascists.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the third element is effective polarization, which is they just don't like each other on a personal level. So they just plainly just don't like each other. Does it say party? Oh, because their ideologies are part of their identity. So a lot of like Democrats, they bring up more Democrats, or they raise Democrats if they have kids, and Republicans will raise Republicans with like, what is it, like with their own values. What do you think about that?
I think it's true to a certain extent. I think that's why, like historically speaking, like the Republicans don't really like higher education, or like they will put down like college or like especially liberal arts colleges because their kids will get exposure to a lot of ideas. And a liberal arts education is really important because it's balanced, and so it's not so much that your kid is being brainwashed once they get to college. They're just being exposed to different ideas than they were at home. And so, I don't know, when they get to college and they decide that XYZ that they've been taught is not really the right way, it's kind of like they have to do a process of unlearning things.
And that's why I think, they think a lot of college is like liberal because then they, they get this different perspective and they don't like that. They don't like that.
They want to control their kids so that way they can be conservative and, marry other conservative people and have conservative babies and then grow up one day to be in the GOP and keep the cycle going,
Or have you seen like I think it was some representative's Christmas card where he has like him and his whole family
and they're all holding guns?
They're all holding
I saw that.
Oh my god, that's so crazy. I don't know.
That's why I'm kind of scared to transfer to UG, but that's the conversation for later.
Yeah. The fourth element is procedural polarization, which I think is more known, which is politicians using more extreme tactics to accomplish goals. So, for example, well, first of all, it's a fact that Republicans do this more than Democrats.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, limiting people's access to ballots, extreme filibustering. You know what filibustering is?
Yes. That's a waste of taxpayers' money right there.
Yep, the whole system. Like in this class, I learned so much, and just like how anti-democratic Congress really is, and they just don't get anything done. I don't know. What do you think?
In my opinion, I think it's all political theater. I think it's frustrating because, like, as a society, we place so much value in these positions of power. But then when you, like, really look at it, it's, like, it's so much bureaucracy. And it's, like, we elect these people, we throw money behind these people, we go out and, like, we do all of this organizing to get people in office. And then it's kind of like as soon as they get there, they're just plotting on how they can get reelected again and not so much focusing on the issues.
That's what we talked about in class. How
so
that's their main focus. And it takes up a lot of their time.
Because, like, once it's the hardest thing is getting into the position, and then once they're there, they just gotta work to staying there. So, and as far as like the extreme tactics to accomplish goals, like I also think like in the Democratic Party, I mean they don't do it as extreme as Republicans do. That I agree with, but like even today though, today Joe Biden announced that he's going to be running again for the next election.
Oh yeah, I did. And then, I did hear that.
He was telling people that like this is to save like the soul of America and stuff like that, and like how we must rally behind him because to protect our rights and our freedoms. And it's like that's what you told us in 2020.
Yeah,
and now you're telling us again in 2024. So it's like the more things change, the more things stay the same, I guess. Because
even just like the U.S. as a whole, like, so obviously there's a lot of problems domestically, but the U.S. at a global stage, like, we're losing our influence. Like, we're shifting away from that unipolar system, and we see China is slowly like
it's coming on top.
Yeah. You see how like they're not trying to use the U.S. dollar anymore. China won over Saudi Arabia.
Oh yeah, the United States is definitely in its flop era.
Yep. Definitely flop era.
We are witnessing an empire in decline.
Yep.
It's on its last vestiges of power.
Yep, this inflation is gonna get so much worse, girl.
And the 2024 elections, let's see if this country's even intact by next fall.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
I mean, that's how I look at it. It's just like it's another, like, 2020, if you think about it, it wasn't that far long ago. And like 4 years happened so quickly.
Yeah.
And they've already been, organizing for the next election. Yeah.
Oh wow.
But the more things change, the more things stay the same. Yep. And we're in the same situation as we were back in 2020.
But it's like, what can you really do? What can you really do?
Just fight and survive.
Anyways, that's a different topic. So both parties and chambers are guilty of polarization. It's not more in one chamber or in the other. They're both equally as polarized, and sources of globalization or like the media. I think you said campaign funding. I know
the
you
super PACs.
Yep. Interest groups, all of that.
The lobbying.
Or you saw how Tucker Carlson got fired?
Oh yeah.
Doesn't your family watch Fox News? Is that what you told me?
So, no, my family doesn't watch Fox News, but I have a classmate of mine who was telling me.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
He was telling me how his family kind of just like religiously watches Fox News, and I was like, that's interesting, because I thought you told me your mom was like a geologist, so you would think like, as a scientist, you would be on the side of the truth. And I think a lot of people like to say that they watch it just to like not take it seriously, but I feel like they do take some crumbs of truth from stuff like that, and it's kind of scary. It's
scary how like easily it is to influence them with like bad information. I don't know if you saw why he got fired, but because he was part of a defamation case, right? The Dominion lawsuit.
What was he?
He was accused of like Fox News as a whole was what is it? Dominion Voting Systems put a lawsuit against them saying, what was it? How they wrongfully said that the 2020 election was stolen.
Oh.
And they participated.
Oh, because of Russia. Because they think that Russia stole the election with the ads on Facebook.
Yeah, and they intentionally spread all that to their viewers, and that's why he got fired after. Or what is it? After the lawsuit? I don't even know what happened. I just know that he got fired. Something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a problem with having this type of media.
Yeah.
And then also, I mean, don't empires that only last like 250 years, and we're approaching like the 250-year mark by next year?
I think so. I think the U.S. rose as a global power like during the World Wars. That's when they really rose to power. And then, they started using the dollar as, like, I guess kind of like international currency. I forgot what that was called. During the Barron Files? I don't remember, but it was where they said, I forgot. Oh, there was a problem with countries trying to devalue their currency so that other countries would buy more from them. Yeah. And so then that's when the U.S. stepped in and said, look, we can just use the dollar as like the same value as gold, because at the time we had like 2/3 of the world's gold. And because of that, people started using US dollar. But now we see that that's not happening anymore. People are investing more in cryptocurrency. I don't know where I was going with that. Yeah. I don't have anything else to talk about.
So we can go back to was there something else that you wanted to go back to, or
I don't know. Do you have any questions, or what do you think about this?
I think it's a difficult subject to talk about with people because I think everyone, even society, is polarized too, just like the parties in Congress.
Just like how we said, people identify with them, and they feel it on a very personal level, and so they can't just I guess they can't just separate it, and not everyone is I guess as educated.
That's very true. Especially if you're getting your news if you're getting your information from Fox News.
From Fox News.
It's very hard to have a conversation.
Yeah. And I don't know, people get so mad. If I try to talk to my dad about this, he's a Republican. He is diehard Republican, but because he's also religious, he's a very religious Catholic, and so he's pro-gun. What is he? He's pro-life. Yeah. Pro-life. Even though the other day, me and my brother, we challenged him on this, and he did not like that. He shut us down immediately, which goes to show people don't like the truth. They don't like it. I was reading the other day, I think we talked a little bit about Clarence Thomas during procedural polarization, and I was reading an article about him, how he accepted money from, I forgot who it was, some donor, and took him on he frequently receives money from this person, and they go on vacations together, and you know how he is in the Senate, or not the Senate,
the Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court.
That's also a very antiquated thing that we have in society, because it's if you think about it, they are appointed by the president, and also other powers that be, and so they aren't really representing the general person or the general public, and so it's not really a democracy.
Their job is to decide on cases, right?
That's true, but they can,
and they shouldn't be. I think they should be doing it from a neutral standpoint. Yeah. But that's not possible. The whole point of a president appointing them is because of their own personal viewing gain. Yeah. But
that's why it's kind of antiquated, because it's they can be interpreting. They're interpreting the Constitution that first of all is already way too old. Yep. And it's already way too old. Exactly. And then they can have ulterior motives, and also if you're a Republican a Republican justice or judge. It's kind of why did RBG not step down during Obama's presidency, Oh yeah. When she needed to retire. Yeah. She was also racist. That's the problem. Yeah. I mean, I'm all for a girl boss. I'm all for women in politics, but what's the point of a woman having that power and also being the oppressor? Yeah. It's
yeah. Unfortunately. I think another thing we talked about with this polarization, I can't remember which one we tied it to, but was the January 6th insurrection, and how there was involvement from every branch. Oh, that's when we started talking about Clarence Thomas. Yeah. And just how easily they were influenced. And I think there was the Proud Boy trials. I was reading a little bit about that last night too. Just because they misinterpreted it, or they took their speech too literal. Also, when I was reading up on Tucker Carlson's termination, I don't know, I was reading an article about him last night, and they also mentioned how because of them they influenced also the January 6th people, and I think
so why is it just not getting fired? Why did they wait until now?
Because of the lawsuit.
Oh yeah, that still takes time.
Yeah. But I think I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I think they kind of had the right idea. It was the wrong, motivation that they needed. But because once they got in there, they didn't do anything. Yeah. They just were walking around with guns. But, I mean, at this point,
they did it for the wrong reasons.
Wrong reasons.
And also, I just think it's ironic how, white people, or I'm sorry, not white people, but the people that participated in the January 6th takeover, they did it because they felt Joe Biden being president was like,
well, that he stole the election.
That he stole the election, then it's an infringement upon their rights that a Democrat is in office. But then it's like, if you're gonna do, like, if you're really gonna be down to do it, like, you need to have principles. You need to have, like, what are you gonna be standing for? Like, if you're gonna do all of that commotion, like, it's meaningless if you're just, like, running around. It's not a principled stance where, like, you have actual people who are maybe, like, grassroots organizers on the left wing of things. When they do protests and when they do, like, these actions, like, they actually have values and they actually have principles and why they're doing it, and there's intention. It's not just like, let's just jump around. And also, like, if January 6th would have been full of people that were like left leaning, they would have never been able to even make it up the steps.
Yep. I was just thinking that, how it was the wrong people, like, or they would have been the right people had they had the, I don't want to say correct values, but maybe, I don't know, like, do you know what I mean though? Like, if they weren't, like, going in there or doing all this insurrection in the name of Trump, like, are you serious? Yeah. Had they had more, I don't know how to say this, but I don't know how to say this, had they had, like you said, like, for the wrong reasons or better reasons, like, they didn't even really get, like, they didn't really get any punishment or anything. Had it been like colored people or, like you said, left leaning people, then they wouldn't even have made it over, and they would have been in jail immediately. But you see, there was a whole process with their trials, and it was a whole show. Like, remember the one? He came up in so many pictures. He was wearing, like, the horns. Yeah. His trial was, like, all for show, and they didn't really do anything.
But, like, they're saying that the reason why, like, they're going hard after these January 6 people is because they're trying to get all these legislations passed for, like, anti-terrorism, so that way, like, when the left start to do, or when the left do things, they can just, already have that legislation in process. Because, like, even though the January 6 people didn't really do anything, it still was considered acts of, like, domestic terrorism. Yeah. But, like, now with, like, them doing all these laws and, like, legislation and, like, persecuting these people that participated, it's like, if you were actually involved in, if you're gonna, like, do direct actions or, like, nonviolent things of, like, protesting, then they're gonna have, like, they're setting that precedent with that legislation, so now they'll be able to come after, like, left-leaning organizers and protesters. That wasn't there before, because before January 6th, we didn't really have a...
Yeah, well, there's no actual, like, real definition for terrorism. Or in a different class we were talking about this, but we were talking about terrorism, like, on a global scale. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's different, like, domestically, but there's, like, no official definition for terrorism, so that's why it's, like, harder to legislate? Is that the word? Yeah. I don't know, yeah. Because there's a lot of, like, vague areas for that.
There's also that takeover in Michigan when I think it was the Proud Boys or, like, some, like, right-leaning group tried to kidnap the governor, because the governor of Michigan's, like, a Democratic woman.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that happened, like, around the same time.
Oh my god, what the heck?
And, like, the thing is, like, the FBI will know about all of these groups and what they're planning to do, and, like, they don't step in until like after the incident's happening. So it's like, if you have the knowledge.
Yeah, I don't. That's what I'm saying. This whole, like, they maybe had the right idea trying to take down. Well, if they had better organizing, I don't know.
It's just the thing is that when Trump won back in 2020?
No, 2016.
When Trump won back in 2016, you didn't see a group of Democrats or left-leaning people storm the Capitol saying this is an infringement upon our rights. Yeah. When Trump was elected, so like,
I don't know. It's such a mess. I don't know. Yeah. After this class, I was just like, wow. Or even after this whole semester, it's just like, wow. Like I don't even know what to think. Like, it's just like viewing it so different. Just the U.S. at a domestic and a global scale. Yeah. It's so like I've lost hope. I don't know. But thank you, Julia, for talking with us.
You're welcome.
I love talking to you. So
likewise.
But yeah, and one last thing I want to say to Professor Lazarus, that's the name of my teacher, is that I really enjoyed your class, and I know I never really spoke that much. This is probably the most he's ever gonna hear me speak ever. But also with the simulation, I really enjoyed that, and my bill was the first one that passed. It was HR 444.
Sleeper.
So I know, right?
What was it about?
It was about placing stronger restrictions on marketing and advertising on what is it, meat substitution products, because right now there's no like existing legislation for that. So like alternative plant-based meats or lab created meats they have like more flex on how they can advertise, and they can falsely spread like nutritious information and influence consumers to buy their products, and it's like it might be incorrect.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it turns out we shouldn't be vegan then. We should just be
I think you can, but you don't want to be like falsely,
Yeah.
You don't want to be malinformed. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, and I just want to say I enjoyed your class, and I did learn a lot, and yeah, I enjoyed having you as a teacher. So yeah, thank you.
Bye everybody. Thanks for watching.